Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to Social Gelo with Angelo. This is the 100th episode of our show. So I thought I'd do something. When I first started Social Gelo with Angelo, I failed so badly by not presenting any topics.
I have sound, guys.
Saying, hey, what's up? And I should probably mention, because it is the 100th episode, I have randomly invited a lot of different people to jump on the show. So get ready, because while I'm talking, people are going to be jumping in. For example, hello, Renato. How's it going? Can Renato hear me? Webcam utility. Okay, so Renato's still figuring out his stuff. Rowland, can you hear me? Rowland's still figuring out his stuff. Okay, so while they figure out their stuff, what's up?
You hear me? I don't hear you.
I can hear you. You can't hear me. I can hear you.
I don't hear you.
Oh, yeah, you hear me.
Aloha.
Aloha. Yeah,
Aloha.
There we go.
Evan, Angelo, you told us none of us what's going on. I feel like we're being added to a surprise party, or one of us being called out for something. What's going on here?
It's like a surprise. It's like a surprise black belt test.
I need to have my drinks ready, man. What's going on?
Oh, you didn't have your drinks ready. Okay, yeah, guys, get your drinks. Rob, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, what's up?
Oh, okay, cool. So, all right. So for anybody listening to the podcast version of this mess, like I said earlier, I have a lot of different people coming in, and I invited a lot of people. We'll see who shows up. This is the 100th episode. When I first started and like I was telling everyone here, like when I first started Social Gelo with Angelo, there was no format. Like as things progressed, a format, I came up with something and started sticking to it, and the whole martial arts thing probably started about 3 years back. So for the 100th episode, I kind of wanted to go back to that, where there really isn't a format. It was just a conversation. Like if you look at the first episode, I interviewed an expat who was my coworker, who was also the producer of the original show. And I heard something. I heard some feedback. I think Renato, can you hear? Oh, he's probably good. There it is. Okay, Renato can hear us. Hello, Renato.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah. We could hear you the whole time, actually.
Oh, really?
We heard everything you said.
Every dirty little word. No, I'm just kidding. So, like I was telling them, for the 100th episode, there is no format. I just wanted to have some people come by and hang out and just talk about whatever comes up. I'm drinking soju. I think. But when
either that or rat poison.
What's the difference between sake and that?
So sochu's made with potatoes, and it doesn't taste like sake. It's got like a bit of a stronger taste. And sake is made with rice. So
yeah. And
I'm also drinking a beer. Thanks, Rob, for coming out. It's like 2 a.m. for Rob. It's like 2 a.m. we have Boston, Austin, Texas, and France. Yeah. I think
Boston, Austin, and France.
Yeah, Boston, Austin, France. What time is it in Boston there?
3.
Okay, so he's like Rob. All right, well, cheers.
Before we do our cheers, Anthony, you and I have not officially met, I believe.
Nice to meet you, John.
Nice to meet you too, Anthony. Okay, now we can drink.
Okay.
Cheers.
I'm in the correct now. Shit.
So
9 a.m.
Oof. The hell is that?
Oh, you're rat poison.
Might be rat poison. Well, what a way to go on the 100th episode.
100th episode. It's a great show, but I can only do it once.
One shot, one kill.
John, guess what? It's your show now.
Passing the torch on to John.
Congratulations on the 100th episode.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, like I was saying, it all worked out like not the way I intended, but I'm happy with how how it turned out, and I'm happy with the direction the show's going. And I'm trying to bring in a little more psychology. So for anybody listening to the mess of everyone connecting and everything, for all the listeners out there, thank you for listening, and I appreciate your support. If for some reason this is your first episode, I'm so sorry, because this is not gonna be, you can just please go back. Like,
I swear, baby, it's not always like this. I swear, baby. Come on.
So there is no format, but to kind of get things going or rolling. How's training going, John?
Great, actually. I would say I think everybody's been struggling because of COVID, as coaches, teachers, and everything, having students come in. It's looking hopeful. Half my students were not Japanese, which means if you guys ever worked with teenagers, you know that as they graduate high school, they go off to university, you lose those students. It's the same thing here. I got foreign people who are here for 3 years and they leave eventually. Usually they're replaced by other foreign people, but that hasn't been happening because no one's flying in for the last 3 years. Japanese people are afraid to come in, but it's slowly coming back up. I'm feeling hopeful. I think we're doing well, and I kind of see a reflection going on in Rob's school as well. Rob's school is looking pretty well. I saw your recent videos, Rob. You got outside. Are you working at an elementary school?
Right now, I'm just using their kind of like a blacktop basketball area.
Yeah.
I have I guess spoiler warning. I have a permanent location being built out right now.
No way! I know, but I'm congratulations, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
And also congratulations to Rob. Oh, for those of you who are out of the loop of what's going on, we were talking about a martial art called Kajukenbo. It's something that we all share in common. We all teach. We're all Kajukenbo instructors. I should have said that first. So we were talking about training. We're talking about martial arts. But I want to congratulate Rob on hitting 1,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. For those of you who may have not subscribed, definitely check it out. Combat Self
Defense.
Okay. All right. I said it right. Yeah. Combat Self Defense. Check it out. So I don't know how much you want to talk about that change. It's up to you, but how are things going with that?
Right now, they're going really well. It's a strike while the iron's hot kind of situation. I'll go ahead and spill it. I don't care. I got fired from the dojo I was working at. I've been planning for a while to move on with the Muay Thai team to open up our own space. And the owner of the dojo found out and felt like he was being stabbed in the back because we were planning on leaving him, and said, you know what, you guys can leave now. We tried to say, listen, like, we weren't going to just leave today. We were going to say, hey, this is what's happening. We'll give you a couple weeks, couple months, however long, to transition and figure out what the next steps are going to be. But he was like, no, I want you out now. I said, okay. Didn't seem the smartest idea at the time. I told all the students who I spent, every single class teaching that it was my last day. And they said, well, great. Then we're just going to cancel our membership and go with you.
Yeah.
So he lost everybody in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
That sucks for him. But we've been training at a park. I told them it's going to be inconvenient for a little bit. We don't have bathrooms. We don't have air conditioning. We have a water fountain, but it's only 30 days. And then we get a 4,000 square foot facility.
Great.
With basically everything we're ever going to need. So like, if you guys stick it out with me, I'll grandfather you into whatever you're paying right now. If you wait to re-sign up when I open next month, then you're paying the new rates.
Great, man.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Congratulations on the move. That's
Thank you.
And it's like I said, I'm trying to avoid saying the wrong thing.
Take a shot, then you can say it.
Yeah, keeping things. Oh no, I'm trying to avoid, like, because me and Rob have talked privately about his transition. I'm trying not to disclose publicly stuff that may be kept better private after drinking, which is a huge challenge for me. But I am gonna say I'm really happy for you. Going with the conversation we did have off screen about transitions and figuring out your life as a martial artist, right? Because like I was just listening to the Bruce Lee podcast. Another great guest, Daniele Bolelli. If you haven't checked out the Bruce Lee podcast that he did about his history, definitely do. There's some really crazy things about Bruce Lee I didn't know. And one of them was that he really was a struggling martial artist up until he got big into Hollywood. And then very easily, if that wouldn't have worked out, we probably would have never been having this conversation about Bruce Lee. Because it did not look like, it wasn't looking good for a while there. Like he dropped out of college. He moved in to one of, I believe, if I got the history right, one of Ed Parker's students gave him a place to stay. So he was living there, and the guy's wife was dying of cancer. So so Bruce Lee and his wife were helping him take care of the wife, and they were living at his house. So they didn't even have a place to stay at one point. And this was all happening when he was trying to get his stuff going down in California and trying to get his career started as an actor, but things were not going well. The Green Hornet was not going well. It got canceled. So like, you kind of look at things like that. It kind of puts things into perspective as trying to like that whole martial arts life balance. Like, how am I going to make money to pay my bills, and how am I going to keep doing this thing that I love? So yeah, that's awesome that you're going in that direction, man. Renato.
It definitely sounds glamorous when you put it that way.
You are the next Bruce Lee. You are the next Bruce Lee. Remember that.
Yes.
Never know.
You're the one. So Renato, how things going with you, man, on your front? How's everything going?
Great. Things are going great. Just giving a thumbs up to Anthony and Rob. I haven't had the pleasure to talk to them in Zoom, at least. So it's great. And for you too, of course. Love to see all of you again. So things are going great. We're starting the season right now. So things are going. Actually, I've made some changes from the last year. I was giving training sessions 5-6 times a week. And this year, I decided to make it 2 times a week and concentrate myself in other things. Even my training. So I decided to give less classes and make some room to myself, because sometimes we just get lost in giving classes all day, and that's a bit hard. So I decided to go. Let's give some time to myself, but then things are going great. I'm starting with my school here in France for the season. Things are going great with my other schools abroad in Portugal and Brazil. It's a bit complicated also right now, but things are. You keep training. That's the most important thing, and Argentina also, and that's the thing. I have some guys interested in other countries also, so things are going great. Studying with the means of possibility, and of course trying to be together sometimes. Like it's going to happen right now in December 11th. We're going to be making a gathering of our folks in Garcia's Method. And that would be a great opportunity to train along with guys that we don't see every day, and because of COVID, we don't see them like in 3 years or something. So that will be it will be great. I will go about this right now to not to change the mood afterwards. I just wanted to say some words about Ayaokoa. I don't know if you know him, but he was a great man in Kajukenbo that died yesterday or Friday. I don't know. So he was a lot within the spirit of Kajukenbo, and represented a lot of what Kajukenbo is. And I would just want to say some words about him. I think it's important. It was actually all of us in the community have something to thank to him, because he was the man that with his sister Kalanikoa that taken Siju in the last days of his life. So for me, that's real ohana over the blood connections that we have with each other. Someone that has no blood connections and keep and take care of Siju like he did with his sister is very important. So big hug to him wherever he is right now, and life goes on. Auiho, ayaw.
Well,
so
cheers.
Let's drink to that.
So yeah, let's drink
You
to
can hear
that.
that. You guys feeling a difference with COVID students? Like for me, the last week or two have been more hopeful. It seems like things are brightening up. Maybe it's here in Japan. Has there been a time recently for you guys where you've noticed a change where things are starting to brighten up again?
Yeah, I did. I really did. People just are going to contact you more, and I think people needed to come back. And that I think that's the feeling I'm having with most of students and new students that are coming also. People just need to come back. Of course, some are keeping the slow motion pace that we had in COVID, but there are others that are doing the most they can to keep training and keep going.
Yeah. I'm seeing it for some students, they need it just for mental survival right now.
Yeah, completely.
We have more going on in the Boston area. A lot more activity. My younger son is 14, and him and all his friends are all playing sports and doing a lot.
Great.
It seems to be people are pretty relaxed in the part of Massachusetts I'm in.
And Anthony, by the way, again, this is our first time meeting. Thanks, Angelo.
I told you.
I'm just curious.
Welcome to the 100th episode, guys.
I should have expected.
No format. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. I told y'all that there's no format. Can you see why my show was so
nothing.
Successful? Like,
there is no spoon. Anthony, I'm just curious about your school because I don't know anything about it. What's the story for your school? I mean, for me, I'm teaching out of community centers and a local dojo just on the weekends. What's your Kajukenbo connection at the moment?
I started a school. I think it was around 2000. It was earlier, but then it was 2005 officially, and then I had a space, and then I moved it, and then I moved it again, and then when COVID hit. I just went to my garage, and I have a law practice.
Oh, great!
And I have some kids, so my time schedule didn't really allow me to go kind of what I call go big. So my students never really had the kids component. So I always had around 5 students always, and now I have two guys that come and train with me. And with COVID, the way it was, I cut down the volume, so we just do once a week right now. But I go and I do judo, train with judo dojo 3 times a week, so I'm 2 to 3 times a week. And that actually is not exploding, but it's really kind of reigniting right now. And they're like 3 or 4 Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys that joined the dojo, and they got a bigger space because the gym that was in the building, I guess, couldn't make it anymore due to COVID. So they took over that space. So I've been very active, starting to get back into shape. I did a session yesterday, and I was really struggling just to do the calisthenics or the cardio part of the class in the beginning. So I think things are looking up. But
good. Anthony, you mentioned you do law practice.
Yes, I'm a patent attorney, and I do trademarks and copyrights too.
Okay. It's just nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I know.
And I have
oh, good.
I have my teachers from the Western Massachusetts area. And I'm affiliated with Kinji Ohana.
Kinji, okay.
And Senior Grandmaster Kinji, his son Ron Kinji, and Jesse Corpus. They're actually coming to see us. They're coming to Boston initially, and then we're going to be spending the weekend in Western Massachusetts in a couple of weeks.
Oh, right.
Right on.
I forgot. Rob, Renato, where's your lineage? So like Angelo and Anthony, you got the Kingi lineage. Abad.
I come from the Abad.
Abad. I don't know. You're Abad method.
Yeah, I'm the Abad method. I come from that method, and then I don't know how it's going to end up on the recording. I'm pointing towards Anthony, but then later during the recording, maybe Anthony's over here, right? So I should avoid pointing like everyone's going to be looking at the right person.
Just do like this.
We'll
I'll
say-
go like this.
That guy over there.
Somewhere around here. Anthony's tied to the Kingsley lineage. Rob, I know you said Renato. We'll go to Renato. Renato, what's the lineage you're tied to again?
I'm with Angelo Garcia.
Yeah, that's what
I'm a direct student of Angelo Garcia.
Okay. And then Rob, you are
I'm under the Tony Lassett branch. So
okay.
Tony Lassett to Jay Vera is where I'm at.
Got
So
it.
I'm third generation.
Got it.
So,
Nice to have all these lineages here.
like,
We should fight.
Yeah, let's do it.
There is the only one, right? There's only one way.
Black screen.
well, of course, I mean, I'm running the meeting, so this is kind of unfair to all of you. remove. I win.
Well, he's bringing my screen back. I'm going to fill up my glass.
So, yeah.
But by the way, I'm in Kraken.
You're doing Kraken. Ooh.
I'm doing Kraken, man.
That's the dark
Is it
rum,
like
right?
9 a.m. for you?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Kraken.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do the
nice.
crack
I've
release.
had-
But I
Kraken
have
is
green
good.
tea. I have green tea to help.
Green tea. Oh, okay. I thought you were double fisted, man. You're like cracking
Wow.
and drinking some sort of other alcohol in the other cup. I mean,
Well, there's
actually,
Kraken in the tea.
It's
that's
9 a.m.
kind of what
here.
I'm doing. So answering John's question, remember I told you a while ago that I had a feeling when things started calming down. Oh, cheers, everyone! Cheers.
Cheers.
That I had a feeling that when things started to calm down out here, there'd be an influx of new students, and I am seeing an influx of new students.
Good.
I never told my family classes that I opened again because I was waiting for things to settle down. But I let the family classes, and I did change it. So I used to have a kids class, but I have the same issue as Anthony. I have my Kajukenbo school, but I'm running three different businesses. I'm running 4 different businesses, so I have to really watch my time management. So like, as much as I'd love to have a kids class and then an adult class, I just don't have the time to do it. So, and on top of that, my instructor never did that either. He just did family classes. So like the people always, and then I feel for me, when I do it that way, it makes the kids that join take it more seriously because they see the adults training and then the kids training is exactly the same. There's no difference between the two things. So if you're wondering where this is going, look at the adults. That's where it's going. You kids, I'm a little more laxed about giggles and playing around and joking around and stuff than I am with the adults. With the adults don't do that, but that's about the only difference.
Well, some adults do that too, you know.
So, yes, some actually, they do. Actually, they do. Some adults do, especially doing grappling for the first time. I hear a lot of giggling happening. So
You know what? That's a great concept because here in Europe we are not used to make that family not as much as in the US at least. They make that concept of family class, and I think it's very useful. And it's kind of making the grassroots of the school, you know. So we are mainly because of physical training theories and also legislation. We are not very inclined to do that. So we have to make kids class, and we have to separate them in various levels, and then adults class. So, but I think I will try to make that something going on here because I do like the concept. I've been trained also sometimes in that concept, and I like it. So it's very interesting.
Well, definitely the way you're doing it is easier. I mean, as an instructor, I'll tell you, it's way easier when you have the kids in one class and you can do like a kids curriculum and the adults in another class, and you can do like this focus curriculum. But
we focus in their needs of each age or whatever.
Yeah, it's way easier to do. But yeah, it's definitely. Another thing, John, I was going to say last time I noticed so John is always trying to get Japanese people to take martial arts and self-defense seriously because Japan is so quote unquote safe that most Japanese people when they come in are like, I don't really need self-defense. I mean, It's not like anybody has any guns, and it's not like there's that much violence. And it's true. I mean, if you look up the world's safest cities, it's Japan's cities are going to come up. Right. So they do, when they train for completely different reasons. And it's not like the American reason. The first thing I know I did Kajukenbo was because for self-defense. So like John's always posting like, person gets stabbed in the city, another person gets stabbed in Tokyo, person gets stabbed on train, and he's like, that's like his.
I try to do it, but in fact, my next podcast, I'm going to be doing. I'm in the works of it now, and I only do like 1 or 2 podcasts a year now. My next one, I'll be talking about the legality of self-defense in America and Japan, and I will be talking about that. I mean, guns are not a thing to worry about in Japan, but there's knife attacks all the time. We were talking about the 2013, this young lady who was being stalked and, you know, got murdered by her boyfriend with a knife. It happens. Japan is one of the safest places, and I love it. But this shit does happen.
And here's the thing. I used to say that too. I used to say that my area, I'm in the countryside. I'm not in the city. That stuff happens the day after class, during the family class. We finished the class, and I made the mothers, because right now to run it, I told the mothers that did not want to train. I said, well, they didn't say they didn't want to train. One of them wanted to train. The other one wanted to watch. And I said, it's easier if you all train. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. It's easier if you all train. So they all started training, and they like it and they enjoy it. So now what I do is, part of the formatting is we get done with the lesson in an hour. We finish the curriculum we're going to follow. And then during free mat, I have the mothers spar, because the mothers are usually watching the kids to make sure they're doing the drill correctly while I'm teaching the other adults to do whatever they're doing. So then at the end, during free mat, the mothers have to spar. So the mothers were doing today they were working on breaking close guard and going into side mount. And when they were finished, they said, do you also teach knife defense? And I said, I do. Why? And then one of the mothers told me that at her school, an elementary school, a kid got stabbed with a pair of scissors by another kid.
I believe it.
Hospital. They didn't get like fatally wounded, but they ended up in the hospital, and it was a serious injury.
Yeah. And
she was wondering, like, what exactly do you teach, like, for that? And I said, here's the deal. And that's a complicated question. And I'll pass this on. I'm going to tell her the answer I gave, then I'll have you all answer your answers for this. I said, I can teach you a technique to disarm or take away a knife, but I don't believe in any specific pattern for knife defense. And if you see some online video of some person doing this kind of stuff, and then the person and like whatever, that to me is great and all, but the best way to do it is action. So check this out. So I grabbed the knife and I told Zoe my purple belt. I said, okay, I have a knife, Zoe. Here we go. Anything goes. Let's spar. And I wasn't even wearing gloves. And he's wearing MMA gloves. Let's go. We're gonna go light. Or we're gonna go. Ready? Go. And immediately, me and Zoe did. We were at far range. I started doing a few test slices. I came in for the pivotal the sewing machine stab, and he immediately put a guard hand up, stopped the attack hand, and tackled me to the ground. And then kept holding onto my knife, eventually trapping my hand, sticking his knee in my hand, and disarming me effectively. And then we ended up in this melee attack where we're trying to scramble for the knife, and we're punching and kicking each other, and on the ground in a tussle. But they watched this, and then when we were done, we got up, and I asked Zoe, "How many knife defenses have I taught you?" He's like, "None." I'm only a purple belt. I just got my purple belt. We're supposed to start covering that stuff now. And I said, like, if you saw what just happened here, but we've done drills though. It's like, yeah, we've done drills, but you've never taught me like what, like, did I ever teach you to use your knee and stick your knee in my wrist to disarm me? He's like, no, you never taught me that. I just like, it's just, I adjusted what we already know to what we were doing. I
think you remember Eric, we had our podcast on the Hispanic Black Filipino experience. Eric said an amazing thing, that it's all about the concepts. We had a Danzanru Jiu-Jitsu guy come in. He was like, I can teach you the techniques, in our 2-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour seminar. But what's more important is I'm going to teach you the concepts. And that's what reflects over. Who was one of the Presas brothers? There was, they got all these eskrima and knife disarms and all these awesome videos, but then one of the coolest videos was him just working defenses against someone trying to cut him. And it was none of those techniques. It was all brush blocks, parries, boxing kind of stuff. There is no knife technique you can rely on. It's don't get stabbed and get the knife out of his hand if you need to, or run like hell. And even running like hell does not always work. One of my favorite stories in my hometown was a guy who he faced a mugger, wanted to take his wallet, and he had a knife, and he threw the wallet one way, ran the other way, and the guy with the knife ran after him. And I mean, literally, running away does not always work. The technique, no. I've talked about this snake technique. Imagine someone's coming after you with their knife this way, and you intercept the block this way. It's their right hand, your left hand, and you can kind of snake around the arm, and you keep doing this motion. You can disarm the knife. What I love to talk about this technique is that people with absolutely no training have used that to disarm someone with a knife. And what can you do if you try to teach them, do this technique at this angle and this and this and this, you're going to get stabbed, 5 seconds before that. What I would like to see more is more of the myth busting stuff. Rob, I really liked your scorpion spear video. All the other technique videos you throw, I mean, they're cool and they're good and everybody does that, but it's the myth busting stuff. There's another dude whose name I forget. He did a bunch of myth busting stuff, like carry your keys in your hand, and if someone grabs you, you can scratch their hand. And he literally had someone grab him, or he grabbed somebody and told her to just scrape his wrist and his knuckles with the key, and he hurt like hell, but he didn't let go. I think we need some more of that kind of mythbuster kind of self-defense stuff. The scorpion spear video was awesome. No one's going to carry that scorpion spear around, but it was still fun to see what it would look like. As Kajukenbo, we need to study the art as well, and just the knowledge. I think gun defense techniques are good to learn, even in Japan, even though we're not going to need it. But I would love to see more mythbuster stuff, honestly. So Rob, please do some more videos like that, please. Whatever. Even do some other weapons that no one's going to use. I think it's just great to study the art, study the war, study what used to be used 500 years ago and what we can do now.
Sorry, Rob. Go ahead. Sorry, you're good.
I was gonna say, ultimately, the scorpion spear video. I mean, yeah, it was just me celebrating. I don't remember what the accomplishment was that I wanted to do that video for. I think it was a certain number of subscribers. But really, it's like what you said, right? Like, it's a projectile. It's someone throwing a knife. Are you going to carry a spear with a rope on it? Probably not. Like, not necessarily, but like, if someone's attacking me and I have space on them, maybe I'll grab like my phone and chuck it at them. Yeah. And it's like, what is the efficacy of doing that? That was the impetus for doing the scorpion video. It's like, yeah, it's a cool video. I got to wear a costume. I got to goof around a little bit, but ultimately, it's just about using a projectile weapon from your hand rather than like a gun, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember in theory, we need to do theory and such. Like even the flow drills that we get from the Eskrima and all that, you're not going to be in a fight doing this over and over again. The idea is to learn rhythm and break it, and you're not supposed to keep doing the flow. That's the same. It's a theory, but you got to learn it and then apply it into reality,
So spoilers, I just bought a pair of Tonfa.
Next video, I want to see it.
Looking forward to that one.
Renato, what were you going to say?
Oh, sorry. No, the theory about the concepts and all, for me, it's very, very important. So concepts come first and technique goes afterwards, because all we have is different ways of doing solutions for something that appears to us. And sometimes I like to say, come on, today we're going to work knife technique, tomorrow we're going to work M16, M60, and afterwards F16, and maybe we're going to go on a submarine technique next week. So we don't have to apply all that, it's like making techniques for being laid down, or sometimes it's logical, but sometimes it's just making content just for the sake of making it, because the main concepts are behind it, and those concepts are gonna ultimately save your life if you have to. But it's not training 10,000 techniques for 10,000 different reasons. Yeah. Of course, if you go for a knife technique, you have to do and understand concepts. If you're working knife and you're pairing with this side of the arm, they will be cut easily, and this side maybe it's more protected. For example, these kinds of concepts are important.
Yeah.
So if you're doing snake and all, if you're doing a technique that has a knife, for example, you know that the person that attacks you will rely on that knife to get his attack uh, going, and keep the attack really bad for you. So he is also not very keen on understanding the other part. So if you can defend the knife and kick him in some other ways, or making sure you can hit him with a Kajukenbo, destroying arm, etc. So these kinds of concepts are utilized in many ways,
Definitely.
and that's the most important thing. You utilize your concepts, and as Angelo just said, solutions will appear even if you don't teach them. So
Yeah.
solutions will just appear, just the flowing. And about exercises, like a scream, etc. I do like the flow that gives you, but I don't like the repetition that's going to be always the same, and that will not make you keen to resolve the problem. Really, that will just keep you on the flow. And actually, in the real life, and you see competitions of scream and all, that's not what's happening. So for me, I do like repetition, like screamadores do, but I will put them in a low percentage of training, and then I will try to make some works in other parts of trainings, like sparring and testing, etc.
Yeah.
So we have to balance the things.
Definitely.
About the myth busting thing, I do think it's important, but I do think that's also misunderstood sometimes, because if you for example, the key technique, etc., that you said, I know that that's going to happen. So psychologically, I'm prepared to make my hand stronger, and all of those things. So sometimes I do think that myth busting is important, but sometimes I do think that people don't go all the way to understand what's the context behind it, really. So sometimes they will just, this doesn't work for X reason, but I don't understand the technique. Sometimes I don't understand the context, and all of me and my colleague in training, we all know that this is going to happen. So when this is common knowledge, the surprise factor and all, it's gone. So
Yeah.
I do think that's important, but we also have to be careful not to fall in the just bashing a technique without having the context. I
Yeah.
say.
Definitely.
Anything you want to add to that, Anthony?
I have I think a little bit. So this came up a little bit in the context of people thinking that they're safe. And I did a women's self-defense class, and they had 5 women, and it was like a 3 or 4 long class kind of module that I did with them. And a lot of times people are turned off by the idea of sparring or the idea of thinking about violence. And I've been to class, and I've taught this way, where you really consciously talk about a death, kind of a life or death situation, and then I see some students, not everybody's, but some people will shut down. They just don't even want to think about it. Like, so when you talk about, like, if this happens, you could die, or if this happens, people hate it. So I'm like, well, how do I get them into sparring, and how do I get them into learning self-defense? How do I make this more of a fun thing? And so I bought white T-shirts, and I gave them all white T-shirts, and I got a package of magic markers, and I gave them magic markers, and I had a tournament, and they did a knife fight.
Awesome.
And they were like beasts. It was hilarious. It was so cool. And like, you won based upon like how much ink you had and where the ink was, and they were doing parries and checks and then they were like going for the neck, or for, it was just awesome. So
that's the way to do it.
And it was like it brought out just sparring in general too, and and all these. It was just interesting. So it's just an idea to
Yeah. What kind of knives do you guys work with? Because like I usually use the rubber knives and then I still have Angelo's knives, one of his knives.
Two.
Oops. Two, maybe two knives now. Sorry. I've heard of the marker on the white shirt. What my top student also has a set of shock knives, the kind that you feel it and it literally shocks you. And then there's also, the wooden knives that work. And I want to get I think the brand name is called Aku. They're like LED knives that as soon as you make contact, they light up and they go, so you have immediate knowledge that you connected somewhere. And all of these have these different ideas because even the rubber knives I have are kind of hard. So even if they're hard, you feel when you get poked in the ribs. What kind of knives do you guys prefer working with, or what kind of knives do you guys have?
Before we answer that, cheers.
Okay, I'm gonna have to fill up after this one. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Well, like John said, I use the hard rubber knives. I definitely have shied away from the floppy rubber knife, the one that looks like it's like a, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's like
I have a self-defense technique for that one.
Yeah. With the floppy,
You use it to slap the other guy,
slap around. Yeah, the floppy knives. I hate the floppy knives. So it's not so much about what I use, but what I definitely will not use are those Halloween prop floppy knives because. First of all, they don't last. They don't. If you're outside of some sort of rhythm, whatever technique, if you actually use them in sparring, they immediately break. It's the first thing I notice. Like as soon as someone grabs it, and like the other guy's in the middle of a takeaway, and he puts his knee on it or something, it's like whoop! Now you don't have a knife. You just have a handle and the floppy rubber piece. So yeah,
technique.
Yeah, I don't use those anymore. Rob.
I have a few of the rubber ones. I like those. They're easy and cheap to get. I also have a training. I think it's even just like a movie prop pocket folder that looks like a real pocket knife, but it's completely dull.
Oh, I got one of those. Those are pretty good too. Yeah.
They're not great to train with, right? Like you poke someone with that thing, it hurts a lot. It hurts a lot. So it's kind of like, don't mess around with this thing.
Yeah, I think those are good for release. Like if you're like in America, you can carry a folder. So those are good for training, taking a folder out and getting the knife out, et cetera, et cetera. But otherwise, in the middle of the fight, you're right. It's not so good.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on how mean you want to be to your students, right? Like if you get poked in the ribs and you start crying, well, that's on you. You shouldn't have gotten poked in the ribs. My knife self-defense classes tend to be focused on rather than engaging with someone with a knife, it's about getting to them before they have the knife drawn.
Right.
So having something that you can draw safely from your pocket is more important than having like a Tonto style knife, right?
Right.
Which is why I like the pocket folder. Because I'm pretty honest with my students. I'm like, listen, if you know someone has a knife and they want to attack you, you have been stabbed. It's not a question of first I do the inward block and then I wipe it here and then now I've got their knife. I'm like, if you know that knife is in front of you, you've been stabbed.
Yeah.
Like,
I tell people there are no knife fights. There's just stabbings. That's it.
Exactly. I'm like, you get to choose kind of where you get stabbed, maybe how often you get stabbed, but you need to make peace with the fact that that's what's going to happen. At that point, it's now how much do you want to go home? But really, the ultimate knife self-defense is stop it before it gets drawn.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, that's ignoring that. Sometimes a mugging will happen. Sometimes someone will surprise you with a knife, and a lot of times, as we've seen in videos, someone will just run down the street cutting. That can happen too. But you can't you could be the greatest martial artist, greatest fighter of all time. Someone running down the knife, swinging like crazy, that's a heavy task for anybody. It doesn't matter what.
Or even worse, Mickey likes to send me terror videos, and I told him please stop. But please stop. I want to sleep. You're making me never want to go to a third world country ever again. He loves sending me third world country video stabbings. And so I believe this was either I can't tell by the video. It's either the Philippines or it's the Middle East. I really can't tell. I just know it's kind of got that vibe, and it's and both people are brown, but it's kind of really low resolution. I can tell it's like a street camera. It's like the actual police footage of what happened, to how the person's being arrested and they're in court and they're watching this video about this guy murderer and how they stabbed someone. And this one he showed me that haunted me for weeks was two guys square off. they're like one guy, you can kind of see them arguing because there's no sound to these videos. You kind of see them arguing about something. One guy sitting down on a table and the other guy kind of pushes him. He's bigger than the guy. And then the guy gets up and they square off and you see one of the guys just, and it looked like he punched him. And also you see the guy grab onto his neck and starts spurting out a bunch of blood and he falls over. Turns out he's stabbed him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but I mean, if you saw the video, it happened so quick. The guy gets up, they both square off. They have their hands out like that. And you don't even see the guy. Like I had to watch it a few times to see him get ready to throw his jab. And while he was throwing his jab, he pulled out the knife.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it happened so quick. It looked like a jab cross. And even the guy didn't know he got stabbed. He was kind of like, what? And then he comes in, all of a sudden he starts going like this and he grabs on. You see him die. He fucking falls over and starts seizuring. And I'm just like, damn it, Mickey.
Knives are dangerous, man.
Damn it, Mickey.
Knives are dangerous, and the reason, like you said, I share those videos. I spread all the news around here in Japan. That's Japan is safe, but you also have a high level of mental health problems, mental health issues, and people who just want to go cut somebody. There are numerous stories of high school kids just going to a station. They just decide they want to cut people, so they just cut people and run. Literally,
or like I told you, the kid that stabbed the other kid. They were in the classroom, some sort of tussle. Kid grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed the other kid. Like it wasn't
elementary school. You said
it was an elementary school. Elementary school. I think they were second, third graders, right?
Yeah.
And so like,
awful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like I'm saying, there's maybe that's just whatever, but like I said, Japan's got a lot of mental issues, and that has a big connection with knives. It just because. I've said many times before, as it was told to me, depending on where you get your research, anywhere from 90 to 99% of stabbings are done with a kitchen utensil, which means this is not someone getting a Vulcan death knife or some kind of, huge, amazing looking knife. This is something in your kitchen. And these are people who just suddenly get angry and decide to take it out with the closest thing at hand and let it out on you. Then that's a big issue. That's a big thing.
And it's usually a sharp object, like a shank, right?
Yeah.
Cheers. So
cheers to sharp objects.
Cheers to sharp objects. Now we are getting to the end of the 100th episode. And I guess, hey, we actually had a conversation about stuff.
Right.
So like, even though I said this is about absolutely nothing, but I do want to ask a question that I came across because.
What is Kajukenbo?
Oh no, not again. And not what is Kajukenbo and not what is a black belt. I am so over those two questions. But
wait a minute, where's my knife?
So I was having a conversation with a GM after I got done interviewing them, and they brought up a topic off camera that I heard Sijo and Shizu Allen bring up before they passed away. And it was the idea that Kajukenbo is a dying art. And if things keep going the way they're going within a few more generations, it's just going to die out. And I just wanted to see what y'all think, if that's true and if it's not true, and if what you think about why. No, he's not the only GM to say this. Like I said, I heard Sijo and Sijo particularly before he passed away was very concerned about this. I was there during the meeting when they promoted Shizu, and this was the topic of that whole, it was like a seminar thing, and then later they went out to a bar and did some drinking and kept talking about how they were going to keep Kajukenbo alive, because all these guys, this was a long time ago too, all these ladies, men and women instructors, all these senior instructors were really worried about it, that once Sijo was gone, it would only be a few more generations, and they're brainstorming ideas of how to keep it alive. But what do you think about that?
Go ahead, Anthony.
Rob, go ahead.
Just for the sake of the scientific method, I wanted to ask, when you say if things keep going like they're going, can we expand on what that means?
Okay. So for them, what they were noticing was that it was being kept in the older generation, and that there was this gap between the older generation and younger generation where, yeah, you have a lot of kids doing it, but then the kids stopped doing it. So that middle part, people that were at the time coming up that were my age were rare. Like people in their 20s actually finishing the program and then later teaching, that was becoming rare. And they have a lot of kids, but like John was saying, the college factor where everybody leaves when they're in college, and that's what they were observing. And then I'm observing something else now that I'll I'll touch on after everyone answers their question. But yeah, that's the context that they were coming from, was that they noticed a lot of kids doing it and not that many, and the adults doing it were all kind of dying out.
So it's that money quadrant, right? The 18 to 45 kind of gap. That's what you look for in filmmaking. You want that group, and Kajukenbo's missing it. Yeah,
for them, that's what they were saying. Yeah, they felt like everybody, they were either seniors or kids, and there wasn't that many. And they like, that's when I always talk about the famous. I've said this before in writing, and I've said it before in a blog. That's when Sheeswell turned to me in the room full of senior instructors, like, and you, what rank are you, young man? And I'm like, I'm a blue belt, sir. And he's like, and how long have you been doing Kajukenbo? Oh, about 6 years. 6 years, and you're only a blue belt. I'm sorry. But yeah, like, either way, yeah. So either way, that's, I sidetracked. But what do you guys think about that?
Renato, go ahead. I know you're going to say something.
No, Rob just asked a question, so I was expecting him to go ahead. But,
oh yeah.
Anyway, well, my point on this is that I think that's normal that older generations have this kind of lack of understanding of what's going to happen next. And I think everybody, we just, these kids these days, come on, they don't do the things that we do. They are not strong enough, etc. This is kind of a normal thing. We had this going on with our grandfathers, and now sometimes we make it with our kids and stuff like that. So it's kind of normal. So this is one part of it. The other part of it is understanding that maybe the people that make something happen really in Kajukenbo were not that much. If you see, Kajukenbo has a long history. It's only about 10 or 15 years younger than karate, because karate, I don't know if you know, but I also do karate. And karate started in 1936, something about some years before Kajukenbo. The thing is that karate organized itself in a way that had a lot of people in universities and in important jobs and all that made it very known and kind of represented the country in that way. So we cannot compare that with the development of Kajukenbo. Anyways, Kajukenbo started over with a very humble way of teaching, if I may say. It's a student to master in that way, and people came down to the America and then to the other continents to spread it. But it's not very, very well organized. And if you see, we have styles, we have organizations, we have a small group, we make a patch, and that's not easy to organize. If it's good in a way, because it's very it's rich in many ways, of course, but it's also very hard to organize and hard to develop. Right now, I think we assist after Siju's death to a thing that's bad and good in somehow, because afterwards people just try to spread their own kind of organization, trying to spread the Kraken. Where is it? Right here.
There you go.
The octopus. And that's good. But some of the guys, they're just doing bullshit Kajukenbo and bullshit ranks and all of those stuff that we know. So this has a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that's bullshit Kajukenbo. The good thing is that Kajukenbo name is going everywhere. You know, you have to understand Kajukenbo is not to understand the continuation of Kajukenbo. It cannot be US centered. We must understand the world and how it works. And of course, right now in for example, Kuwait, that has 12 different lines of Kajukenbo, we assist people that are going to do bullshit, and some of them are going to do well. So my idea is, in the long run, this will happen and continue to happen, and people will be auto-selected, like Kajukenbo Darwinistic way of seeing things. So people will be selected by their capabilities, by their work, and this will continue to make Kajukenbo something worth to try to organize. I think mentalities are different right now, and we can take advantage of that into the future. So I don't see Kajukenbo as a dying art. I think in terms of world reconnaissance, it's never been like today. Today, of course, because of YouTube and stuff, we know about it. But if you go in your local pub and you say, I'm in Kajukenbo. Kaju what? That still happens.
What is Kajukenbo?
No. We're not doing that.
But then on the other hand, you have people that are starting to make their schools. Some are serious. Mostly aren't. We have to say things like it is. But many of them are serious, and those guys are going to make Kajukenbo worthwhile. So we have to spread it in a very holistic way of thinking things. So I do think that Kajukenbo has a future. It will not stop, but we have to organize ourselves. New generations talking with older generations, being capable of making paths between the generations, but because this is important. It's important. I don't care if you don't make exactly the same techniques. We have something in common. Just take this something in common. Because the problem with the other guys that came before is that we have to respect and love, is that they have this mentality of let's do curriculum for black belts. Let's do things that are impossible, very difficult for the question of differences within Kajukenbo, and then very difficult because of ego things going on. So for me, this is hopefully the new generation that I try to take part of it, and you also, I think. And Anthony, that is maybe in the middle. I don't know how many years of Kajukenbo do you have, but you're maybe in the middle of the generations here.
Anthony, I think he just called you old.
Yeah. No, out of respect, man. Out of respect.
I'm old AF, but not as old as not as old as some of our badass senior grandmasters.
Exactly. That was my point. Exactly. Yeah. So we have to really get to understand this part.
You mean it in a good way, right?
In a good way.
I thought Anthony was like 23, 24, but tops.
Right.
25 and a half.
What do you think?
I gotta say, I think for me the issue is, and there's two big risks to Kajukenbo, big risks to Kajukenbo that I see. And it's not just Kajukenbo, but it's just the whole warrior class or the whole training to be a warrior concept. Society is trying to destroy, the whole concept of defending yourself and learning what you have to do to, should you ever have to really kind of reach deep down and pull the dark side of yourself out and then use it for good. That people don't want that anymore. So, there's so many layers to that, but I think that's a big problem where,
that's all martial arts, right?
Well, Jordan Peterson talks about how, you shouldn't just be passive because that doesn't make you good. You have to become a monster and then you control it and then you use it for good. And that makes you someone who's a good, a really powerful but good person. So I think that's something that we need to figure out, because I think coming from someone like Sijo, he was a warrior. He was the whole point of Kaju is there's this John Hackelman's always talking about like on the street, and it's that element of Kajukenbo is we can talk about what Kajukenbo is and like we're not going to go there, but that's a big issue.
No. We're not
but the warrior piece you know, like the you know the Comanches and and the Native Americans in the U.S., kind of this continent, and then you have the Spartans. They're very a lot of warrior classes, and America's had that, Japan's had that. A lot of the cultures have had that, and I think the cultures throughout the world are trying to kind of put that away. And you have your military, but other than that, you should kind of put that away. And I think MMA is actually a kind of a potential threat as well, because MMA, people think of MMA as the self-defense art, and it doesn't have certain warrior elements to it that we carry with us with Kajukenbo, and some other styles and people have that as well. And so I think there's like the sport and MMA threat, and then there's society saying, we should kind of suppress and make believe it doesn't exist, kind of that dark side of ourselves.
And I think Miyamoto Musashi said the same thing when he was living through a cultural change in his day, watching samurai being disarmed. They were going from an era where you can openly carry your samurai sword, and now you couldn't. And he was kind of living in that change that day, where no longer can you go. So you have a disagreement with another person who's also a samurai, you can no longer go outside and just duke it out with your swords, or you get arrested. There was a police force coming in. There was that whole transitional period, and that's when he wrote the 5 Rings. So it's really important. It's kind of interesting to see things in that way. That's something that, it's like kind of like at one point people were carrying swords in Japan, and that was okay. It was okay to settle your differences with a sword on the street. And then, to be more civil, they got rid of it for obvious reasons. And now, as time progresses, with the progression comes the idea that becoming violent in public. And I know this changes, again, going back to what Renato talked about internationally. We can't be US centric here in this conversation. Or in my case, Japan centric, because I'm in Japan. So like I've noticed, I've heard people talking about how in the UK, it's still okay to get in a pub fight. If you get in a fight at a pub and 2 people disagree and they duke it out, cops won't be called. That's up to the pub owner.
Culturally, okay.
Yeah. Culturally, yeah. Ethically, we're not going there, but culturally.
No, but even lawfully, it's not okay.
Yeah, lawfully, if they decide that if they bring cops in, it's not okay. But the pub owner, it's up to the pub owner, and it's not as prevalent as it is in the US. In the US, if even the smallest shove, one person falls, someone's getting arrested.
911.
Yeah, someone's getting arrested. 2 people just start yelling at each other, cops are going to get called. It's going to be like real quick to avoid escalation and all that other stuff. But yeah, that's pretty. That's I don't know where I was going with that, but Rob, what are your thoughts on it? About the not what I just said about the whole Kajukenbo dying thing.
So I just did a quick Google search. This comes from Yelp, and this is the top 5 most popular martial arts in the US. I know we're trying not to be US centric right now, but this is just the first thing that came up. Top 5 in order: boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, and Taekwondo are tied for 3. MMA and kickboxing, which I'm going to lump Muay Thai in, are 5. And then right behind them is another Thai, Krav Maga, Kung Fu, and Aikido. We'll get to those when we get to them. But the first 5, how you're good at any of those things. You can unequivocally be good at boxing or at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or even at Karate, depending on the style you're practicing, right? Like if you're doing one that regularly engages in sparring, when you're good at it, right? There's no real way to know when you're good at Kajukenbo. There's just no real indicative 100% foolproof way to know I am good at defending myself in the street, because I don't get in street fights all the time, right? The things that attract people to those first 5 martial arts is the fact that I know within a certain amount of time, with a certain amount of confidence and in the methodology that I'm practicing, when I'm going to be good at my style. Kajukenbo doesn't have that. What I have typically, again, this is based on my experience and what I've seen from other schools, I have my instructor telling me that when my belt gets dark enough and I'm good enough at grabbing another guy's nuts, I am good at Kajukenbo. And then you go to sparring, and it's like we were talking about with the flow drills, right? Like we do all these, punch counters, grab counters, and then that doesn't exist in sparring, or you go visit another gym and you do an open gym with them and you spar with them and you're not good at any of the things they're doing. It's like, okay, well, you're good at street fighting because there's rules. That's why you're not good at that sparring. It's like, okay, but I want to be good at the thing that I'm doing right now. I don't want to be good in a hypothetical. I want to be good at that, And Anthony was talking about how there's the disconnect between MMA and self-defense, right? And if you guys watch my channel, you know that I talk about MMA is self-defense. It is the perfect self-defense system with a few caveats, right? There's a few things that need to be addressed. You need to address situational awareness. You need to address pre-fight indicators. You need to address weapons, stuff like that. I think saying that that other self-defense based systems address the need for self-defense more than MMA is saying that ketchup and buns makes a hamburger more than the meat makes the buns. MMA makes the meat of a hamburger. There's still a lot of other stuff you need to add, but it is the main portion of it in terms of combat, right? Obviously, there's a lot more important things, but for this conversation. So bringing that back, you already have those are all, the top 5 martial arts are all combat sports, right? They're all things that you can play at and be good at to various levels. You can get professional at them. You can get paid to do them to some degree. Not everybody wants to do that, right? So that's why the immediate list after that is Krav Maga, which is another one that traditionally kind of gets pooped on because it's a bunch of guys in cargo pants training with each other. Krav Maga has gone through a kind of cultural shift in the last decade or so, where now most Krav Maga gyms kind of look like an MMA gym. Like, yeah, they don't really do jujitsu, they don't really do grappling stuff, but they're training in like regular gear now. They're not focusing so much on defending yourself from an M16. It's basically a kickboxing class where you can poke someone in the eyes. Again, it's kind of, there's immediate way to know when you're good at Krav Maga now because it's looking more and more like MMA with the benefit of poking someone in the eye, kicking them in the nuts, right? I think Kung Fu is popular just because it's Kung Fu, right? Like everyone wants to do Kung Fu. Aikido, I don't know, there's a lot of old people in the world. But the reason I think that Kajukenbo is I don't necessarily think that Kajukenbo is dying because Kajukenbo has never been gigantic. And like Renato was saying, we have to consider the whole world. It's big in the whole world, just not big in the US. I think it's not growing because there's no real incentive for someone with an adult body who doesn't have to worry about some random person coming to attack them. The most common form of violence in the US is domestic violence, right? It's a problem between two people that know each other or between a couple, a man and a wife, right?
Everywhere in the world, actually.
Yeah, so like you don't really have to worry about someone running down the street and swinging, taking a punch at you or swinging a knife at you. You have to worry about your brother and you getting an argument that gets out of hand. So the violence that we tend to face is the one that we agree to. And if we're practicing a martial art that supposedly teaches us how to handle ourselves in that situation, but you can't do it. You can't poke people in the eyes in sparring. You can't kick them in the groin. You can't really do these joint locks they were teaching you. So you kind of have to default to kickboxing and wrestling to some degree. Well, then when does Kajukenbo get to shine in that instance? If we're saying, because there's rules, we can't be good at it.
Well, I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. Sorry, go ahead, Hunter.
I just wanted to say one thing that I think that there's a layered generational issue here where if you look at the original Kajukenbo and you look at like the way things were in Hawaii, there was actual fighting happening. There was actual sparring. There was actual fighting on the streets. There was actual fighting in bars. So I think that but then you let 40, 50, 70 years go by, and then you have people learning the Kajukenbo system in a certain environment. They don't get that feedback. So I think that the original concept of Kajukenbo, especially like when Sijo was talking about it, is that wow, like we know, I know this works because I had this happen and I had to actually apply it. And I think in a way that's part of the risk of Kajukenbo going away, is that we don't have that element anymore. So we're thinking, oh, that's not there in Kajukenbo, it's in these other things instead. And I think that there's maybe a way to kind of reinvigorate what Kajukenbo is in relation to those things. if that makes as a direct response to what you're saying, Rob.
And before turning over to John to answer the question about whether or not Kajukenbo is dying, I can't find the video. And besides, I'm going to make a spoiler alert. I just finished doing the sparring analysis between me and my boxer. I sent Anthony the video, but I can't find it right now to show you guys. But essentially what I did for his test, he's already a professional boxer. He's retired. I know the guy can fight. That's not the issue. Mostly he keeps, every time he does grappling, he complains about grappling. Every time he does it, but he always complains about it. So I wanted to test how he would handle a street fight. And minus the eye pokes, I said, you can do anything you want. And I noticed certain things happened during the fight. And I pretty much opened the fight by grabbing his shirt, putting it over his head, putting him on the ground and kicking him in the face. That was the beginning of the fight. That was the first thing I did. Is he came in to punch, to box. I put my hands up, grabbed the back of his shirt, put it over his head, put him on the ground, started kicking him in the face. And not hard, like for anybody watching. When you watch the video, he didn't get injured. And then later I grabbed the entire shirt and did the whole hockey thing where you go there and you start popping him and he couldn't see. And I'm going light, but I just wanted him to experience what it's like to fight in a situation where there are no rules. As closest to no rules as we can get, just minus the eye pokes. And I kept saying that in the spoiler alert. I keep saying that in the video. I keep saying while I'm analyzing it. Look, as you can see, nobody died and nobody went to the hospital after this. There is a way to do this. I wouldn't suggest doing it all the time because if you have students doing this, it can easily escalate into something that will end up with someone in the hospital. But it is something that they should experience at least once. But yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. I wish I could have pulled the video. But John, Kajukenbo dying.
I think Kajukenbo will never die, but what people consider to be the art might. Kajukenbo. What is Kajukenbo? No.
No.
The idea, like people looking at Krav Maga, which looks like an MMA gym where you can eye poke. That's what Kajukenbo should be doing. MMA is Kajukenbo with the sport idea. One of the things that pissed me off were some people in the Middle East sending me a message saying, hey, I'm a blah Dan in karate and judo and jiu-jitsu, and I love Kajukenbo. Please send me some DVDs so I can learn Kajukenbo. And you cannot learn Kajukenbo without interacting with Kajukenbo people. It is not about the punch attacks, the pinyons, the long knife defense ideas and theories. It's about learning to punch the shit out of each other and then going to get a beer with each other afterward. It's the attitude. It's the aloha spirit. That is what real Kajukenbo is. And if we take away the name, that will still be around. There will be MMA people who want to know about self-defense stuff, and they're going to go to a bar afterwards and drink and talk about it. And that is Kajukenbo. But people are stuck saying that if I teach Kajukenbo, that means I'm teaching these punching attacks. And that is not Kajukenbo. If you're going to get rid of the punching attacks and get rid of the pinyons, you can still be teaching Kajukenbo. It's unfortunate because I feel like a lot of people who got Kajukenbo black belts go to teach a jiu-jitsu class and a kickboxing class and then a yoga class, and they don't realize that they are still teaching Kajukenbo because they are coming from this place and they're teaching these three different arts. And some people say, I just want to teach eskrima. And that means you just want to teach the rules of eskrima. And as a sport, as a hobby, that's fine. But what I want to see myself is people who have trained in Kajukenbo, and they have trained with Kajukenbo people, and they've trained with others who have the Kajukenbo spirit, the aloha spirit. They understand pono. They understand what it is to be a warrior, but to be a good person, not a nice guy, but a good person. I want to see them teach kickboxing and MMA and the Mortal Kombat Scorpion Spear and, Kung Fu and all this stuff, or just parts of it. And just tell their students, this is Kajukenbo. If you want this, I'm going to introduce you to this. If you want this, I'm going to introduce you to this. We're going to do MMA fighting. By the way, in the street, you can also poke them in the eye. I want Kajukenbo people to stop hiding from Kajukenbo and just go do it And if people can say, we're doing kickboxing and in Kajukenbo, you can also pull their shirt over their head, and they teach that attitude and that spirit, then no, the art will not die. But it is totally dependent. The spirit, what is Kajukenbo? That will go on forever, even if people stop calling it that. That's been around for centuries. But the art, that's going to depend on us. That's going to depend on us being proud to say, yeah, I do Kajukenbo. Yeah, me personally, honestly, I suck at grappling, and I'll teach some people the intro. But yes, I do Kajukenbo, and I'm going to teach you what I know. Go learn from this guy too. I'm going to teach you how to punch a guy in the face. This is Kajukenbo, and we need people to be proud of it. And then maybe it will not die out. I believe wholeheartedly.
And then, even though I said this is all about nothing, and I wasn't going to do, I did have a sort of plan, and that's why. Cheers.
Bullshit.
I did have a sort of plan. The thing is that what have I learned? I started doing the Kajukenbo series 3 years ago, and oh wow, look at that. We switched it up. Now Renato, for me, Renato's over here now, but I don't know how. Of course, I don't know what this is going to look like on the final take, but for now, if I point this way, Renato's there. But during the actual video later, he may not be there. He might be here or there.
I'm top.
There.
I'm here
or there. But either way, the thing is that in the last 3 years of interviewing people, part of the research I did for the podcast is I started hearing other Kajukenbo guys' podcasts, or hearing just interviews. Like I type in Kajukenbo into a podcast search, and then they normally didn't have a lot of podcasts about Kajukenbo. It was always some Kajukenbo instructor being interviewed by some other martial artist or some other person talking about Kajukenbo. And I was listening to them just to figure out what's out there. And between interviewing the people that have been on my show and listening to the interviews on people on other shows, is I kept hearing a narrative of people who have done amazing things. Just amazing things. Like John Hackleman has done amazing things in Kajukenbo. His fighters have done amazing things in the UFC. But nobody says Kajukenbo. I've heard great interviews with people that did amazing things in Muay Thai. What Rob is doing right now in Muay Thai. There's Kajukenbo champions. They're champions in Thailand, world champions in Muay Thai. Never mentioned Kajukenbo. And then one of them, the story was that when they approached Sijo, he said, well, it's not Kajukenbo. And they did kind of this whole thing about what is and what isn't Kajukenbo. And I'm not going to go there, like I said earlier. But the idea that, and then also I always cross train. So I'm cross training I guess I can say, I don't know how they fucking work. I'll just say I'm training with a type of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu without naming the school. My opinion about it is that they're a McDojo. I've talked to other people that are doing it, and they've also agreed with me, and they're higher in the ranks than me, and they've also agreed that it's a McDojo, but they're a very successful McDojo. And the reason they're very successful is because of marketing. They've all gotten together and agreed that, hey, we're going to back up anybody who does anything. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if they go out there and do boxing. It doesn't matter if they do MMA. It doesn't matter what they do. When they do it, we're going to plaster. They're going to put a poster inside of our dojos. We're going to say, this is our person. Even if it's not our person, even if they're training somewhere else and they just happen to stop by our gym and they have a purple belt with us, but they're going and fighting in the UFC, we're going to say that's our person. And that marketing attitude is what's made this particular school so successful. Are the techniques all that great? They're okay. Are their training methods all that great? They're all right. Not the best. But that point right there is what's made them become world renowned. Now, Kajukenbo has some elements of that, but I want to say I think that's where when I hear people saying that Kajukenbo might die, I look at it more as a marketing thing. Like, I think one of the things, not that it's dying, but one thing that can really help Kajukenbo would be to stop telling people when they're doing something else that they're not doing Kajukenbo. So like I have my boxer who's retired. He's doing his debut full contact kickboxing match coming up in Osaka in December. And I asked him, I said, "You're gonna fight, right?" He's like, "Yeah." "Hey, I know you don't like red," because he doesn't like wearing the Kajukenbo red t-shirt because he says red is not his color. So, either way,
you got a pink shirt for him.
So I told him, "Hey man, I know it's not your color, but when you go out there and fight, can you wear the Kajukenbo shirt just so everybody sees that it's Kajukenbo? Is that cool?" He's like, "Yeah, that's cool." I'm like, "All right." This is like, but that's part of for me personally, my deal is I don't care what my students go and do, but please just put Kajukenbo on there. Say that you came from the school. That's all I ask. When you sign up for a tournament, I don't care if it's a no-gi jiu-jitsu tournament or if it's MMA or if it's boxing or if it's kickboxing. When you sign up and they say where you're coming from, put on there Level Up Gym Team Kajukenbo Hyogo Japan. That's all I want you to put on there. I just want the name Kajukenbo there so that the public clearly sees where you came from. And then later we can have the conversation about what is Kajukenbo, because even we can't coherently answer that question. So like, and that's what I think that's what I've taken away from cross training at successful gyms. So that's my answer of whether or not Kajukenbo is dying. I actually agree with many of you. I don't think it's dying. But if there ever was a risk of it dying, that would be the risk. It would be mostly marketing.
Yeah.
I think we all have something to say in response. So go ahead, Renato.
Sorry. The problem with me is, with my view, is that where we draw the line, actually. So if we see environment in martial arts nowadays, it's kind of a growth ecosystem with people in Krav Maga or even karate that are taking, oh, this is a nice technique from Kajukenbo. Let's apply to my karate and let's karateka the technique. So this is happening in Krav Maga. It happens a lot. This is happening in Kajukenbo also, but it's normal because it's in our concept. But the thing is, where do we draw the line? We are trying not to talk about what is Kajukenbo, but everybody took their way in it. So for me, I have a problem without drawing a bit of a line in know your katas, at least some of them, and know your counters, some of them, and know your ABC, some of them. So for me, it's important to have this kind of a mentality. And then if you have the extras on your school that are great, that are good for your development, by all means, this is very important. But if we don't draw the line, we will not have Kajukenbo either way, because we talked about cultural part of it, and I think it's very important the cultural part, but we have to make it in a way that the martial art part is there also, because like Rob told in the last intervention, we have the MMA that gives lots of answers, but the cultural part is very different. So this is a martial art. This has a cultural part in it. So we have to develop and keep going with this. If we don't have this part, yes, Kajukenbo will vanish, because ultimately it will be a Krav Maga MMA thing. And what's the difference for people? What's the difference, actually? So the cultural part is very important. The sport part can be important, but we don't agree on rules. That's very hard for now. But afterwards, we can go and make, like Angelo said, make some tournaments there and there and make Kajukenbo known. But we have to have a line of work, at least. Even if it's different styles,
basketball,
a line of work.
Basketball. I'll never tell a student to wear a Kajukenbo shirt to a basketball game. If they're playing basketball, I will draw a line.
That's the line.
That's the line. No. It has to be martial arts.
Actually, I wear a Kajukenbo t-shirt in my last basketball thing. So.
Damn it, Renato.
No, but yeah.
Oh,
for me, that's the problem is to draw some lines and to have some ways where we see Kajukenbo working, but not all goes, because if it's all goes, Krav Maga is doing that and it's calling everything Krav Maga. And I had some instructors of mine said, I don't have the power of communication of Krav Maga. I do things like almost like them. They are starting to make Kajukenbo techniques and MMA techniques and mix it up. So where do we draw the line? So if you don't draw the line, at least I think that's for me it's the menace for Kajukenbo, because the cultural thing you have to keep going. The development of the art within each one mentality has to keep going. But if we don't draw a technical minimal line, it will perish. If we don't see Kempo in Kajukenbo, for me, I'm sorry, it's not Kajukenbo. If we don't see Kempo strikes, if we don't see this work, I think this will go further and further into the line of sparring, further into the line of MMA, and Kajukenbo will be lost. But ultimately, it's a Kempo style, and if we don't have that, we don't have Kajukenbo.
Rob, what are you thinking?
Can't hear you. Oh,
okay. Getting a sound issue thing solved here.
this is a test of how effective Kajukenbo is. If we can communicate without audio.
No, we hear you.
That's a special power.
Oh, here, Anthony. Yeah, you don't hear Rob. Rob, can you hear us?
Rob is stalled. No, it's stopped.
Yeah, I don't think Rob can hear. Oh, cooing.
Uh-oh.
That's the cooing. That's not a good cooing. That's the it stopped and it started again cooing.
Anthony was saying something. I don't know.
Oh wait,
no,
he's wait, cooing. I think he's wait a second. I think no. Zoom is crashing on me.
Oh no.
Microphone died, and now Zoom is crashing. Oh no. Oh no.
I hear you.
I got one last thing to say before we end the show. Whenever you're ready on that.
Back.
Anthony is there also. Only Rob is.
Leave and come back. Yeah.
Only
So
Rob is offline.
Yeah, I told Rob to leave and come back on Facebook. So while Rob is figuring out his thing, John, you had some things you want to touch on.
Yeah, you mentioned Sijo saying, well, kickboxing, that's not Kajukenbo, this not Kajukenbo, that's not Kajukenbo, whatever. I think if he's the founder and he's saying that, we might need to respect the fact that one day Kajukenbo will die. And it's been a humble art. It's been people who fight from the heart and fighters who are very, very humble and great warriors. And I think we need to accept that if Kajukenbo does die someday as an art, that's okay, because it'll still be in history. Because if we become something that Sijo never wanted, and he's the founder, maybe it's okay to go and create something new afterwards. We can always move forward.
Well, Sijo did some very powerful things in order to try to establish boundaries. There were people in my lineage who were not allowed to say they were Kajukenbo for a while, and they were brought back in the fold. He did some things that he ended up kind of regretting and changing his mind later. Mm-hmm. But I think it's fair to say that Bruce Lee's similar. There are other people that are similar, but with Kajukenbo, the bringing in Western boxing, bringing a lot of these concepts, that's such a huge early innovative thing that Kajukenbo did. And I guess the analogy might be like if you took judo and then you added all the martial aspects back into judo. That's kind of what they were trying to do with the Black Belt Society. They had very limited things, and then they're like, well, wait, if we're on the street and we try this out, it doesn't work. So let's look at what are we missing, and then Western boxing or Kali or
I think that he had an image of what it was supposed to be, and like I said earlier, the ideals of Kajukenbo will never die because there will always going to be people who want the real stuff for the fight. The art, what people call Kajukenbo, that might die.
I disagree with that, John. I disagree in a way that I think that there's a space for all things in terms of development of martial arts or sports, combat sports. I think in combat sports, Kajukenbo was nothing. It will never be in combat sports, at least in the next years, because all the rules are already mostly covered, so it's hard to develop in that way. In the martial arts reign, if I may call, or realm, you can see that all the different arts that were put together to make Kajukenbo were not like let's make some of this, make some of this, let's mix it up. And it's also a personal perspective of CJO and also the other founders, but also the guys that went through after the founding, Marina Taunawak, other people. These were personal perspectives put down, and also the difference was really the assuming the word Kajukenbo is a mixed martial art, because mixed martial arts already existed. It's not a novel. Jujutsu came before judo. So Jujutsu came before judo. Before that, they were Bujutsu. So these kinds of things were things that let's work. Let's make war. How does this work? We will not keep just striking like this, and this will be enough. We have to go to the ground. We have to use our weapons, etc. So mixed martial arts were also always there. The 19th century spread them around in styles. And in the 40s and 50s, Kajukenbo just reunited this and assumed this is a mixed martial art. Of course, the problem is a problem of communication, organization. Kajukenbo was a very family-oriented thing, and it is still. So right now, I do think that Kajukenbo will not die. That if it keeps with the martial arts work, I don't need to take away the spar. I don't need to take away the development of different things. But if I'm going in a pursuit for what's better for the street or what's better for the fight, we will all end up doing the same things. Everybody will end up doing the same things.
Oh yeah, and just to be clear, that's what I'm saying. Kajukenbo itself will never die. I agree that what we call the art.
So I think you have to put the accent, the energy. The energy, you have to put it in the martial arts part and make sure that this martial art is open to make sparring, good sparring, to make weapon training, to make this kinds of thing that we do. But if we lose the cultural part, as you said, and if you lose the knowledge of the program, and we don't have to do it like in the original metal all the time. Right. Need to develop and to keep going. But if we lose this conductive way of thinking into what was the meaning at the beginning, we will lose Kajukenbo. I don't care if you don't see Kajukenbo like myself or other guys. That's not a problem. But you have some connection to it. In cultural, yes, that's fine. But we can do that in a dancing group or in a metal group or whatever. We can have our metal culture and go ahead. But then in Kajukenbo, if you lose this part of the culture, but also the part of the connection with the techniques that were made in the 50s, then we are losing Kajukenbo, in my opinion.
And with that, I do agree.
Yeah.
And
so for me, sorry.
So I think one of the things I noticed when I went to one of the things that MMA is lacking is, and this is coming from someone who's a retired, I say amateur MMA fighter, but I actually did a pro fight. Long story. This is coming from someone who did MMA. I've done MMA. I've fought in the cage. I've trained with MMA, quote unquote, guys, MMA gyms out in Japan. And one thing that I did notice amongst them, there's a big difference between culturally, and this is the psychology part of my show. There's a big difference between culturally how people do martial arts. Going back to what Renato said, that we're very US centric when we talk about stuff, is when I noticed the reason I avoided MMA gyms for so long in America is because there was just a certain prototype of person that did MMA that I did not. I don't want to say agree with. I didn't identify with. That would be the word I would use. I didn't identify as someone who did MMA because I thought from the people I met that said they did MMA and the things that I saw on TV about MMA, I was like, that's not me. But then later when I finally went into an MMA gym in Japan, I never stepped into an MMA gym in America. because of what I saw happening. When I finally walked in Japan, I noticed people that were just like me. And I'm like, oh, in Japan, because culturally they have a different ideal on how they do things and operate. It can be done with a lot of respect. It can be done with it can be done in a way where everyone respects each other. And even though they don't have quote unquote ranks, they do follow a certain hierarchy. And there is kind of a senpai kohai system, because you can't root that out of Japan's society. That happens not only in martial arts, it happens in business, happens everywhere.
Yeah.
There's good points and bad points to this. But doing MMA with them, and you've seen a lot of MMA fighters say that when they come out to train in Japan, they come back different. They come back different. They're like, hey, that changed me. That was different. That was different. Yeah. It's different. And I think that's what Kajukenbo has. We have a lot of the same stuff, but we have that element because we do wear the dogis, because we are heavily influenced by some of the Japanese styles. We kind of have that in there. And that's what makes us fundamentally different from just your regular MMA gym in the US. I'm going to focus in on the US on this one, because that's what turned me off to the US ones. But then later I traveled to China, and I met an American running an MMA school there. And the way he ran things was very similar to there's no hierarchy because he's in China and he's an American, but he was very laid back, but his approach was very practical. And there was an actual format. It just wasn't a bunch of people hitting the mitts and then sparring for 30, 45 minutes, right? There was actual format. There was actually you can see a curriculum in what he was doing. So like, I think that's what happens, is because Kajukenbo does have a framework that we all agreed we're gonna. And I know I'm trying to avoid going to the what is Kajukenbo, but
we can't help it.
But it does have a framework that we kind of work with. Whether we decide to go on, whether use that framework or not use that framework, we've all agreed that there's a framework, which makes us work together easier. Which is why in America specifically, you see MMA schools have so many rivalries, where you can't have someone from one MMA school go to the other MMA school, because there's just going to be a fight, an actual fight, because it turns out that MMA school has some fighter they're both competing for some sort of professional thing, and there's money involved. So there's a bunch of blood beef rivalry happening, and that's where you get that and that sometimes happens in Kajukenbo too. But we do have this framework that we can kind of agree upon as far as this is what we're kind of doing, and a common goal that we're kind of trying to reach. And that's what makes it special.
Yeah, just very fast, Angelo. Sorry, guys. Krav Maga guys sometimes come to my gym because they search for different things, and they tell me many times, I've done Krav Maga, I kind of like it, but when I come to Kajukenbo classes, I can go here or there, and I have some connections. Whereas in Krav Maga, they all do the different things in terms of what they are developing, with little connection, with lesser connection than us, of course. I think, at least in Europe, I may say. But that's important. If we don't have these connections, people will not relate to what we are doing actually. So for me, it's very important to develop that part also. Don't be overwhelmed with your self-defense counters, but know some, train some. You know,
and then
don't.
go ahead. Sorry.
No. That's it. Actually.
Okay. I'm just just to go back. Rob's internet crashed, but he sent me. I'm going to speak from the book of Rob. He says, I want you to read my words like Moses. So I'm speaking for the book.
His dojo look like a church, man. So I'm good with this. Let's do it.
So I'm reading from the book of Rob here. Just to finish off his thought, I think Kajukenbo has two contemporaries, Jikundo in terms of philosophy and Kyokushin in terms of similar expression. JKD has his marketing taken care of because of Bruce Lee. That art exploded because they had a giant name spearheading them, and that name will carry them to the end of time. Kyokushin has changed a lot since its inception, but ultimately it still looks the same. You're still going to be wearing 3/4 sleeve gis and say uso over and over again and focus on devastating punches to the body and kicks to the leg. But Kyokushin looks distinctively different from other karate styles, and such as has a very specific culture that can only be found in that art. So the way I see it, Kajukenbo needs either a Bruce Lee type figure, which is what you said, someone or someone's that are proudly shouting Kajukenbo as they win fights or make movies or whatever mark they make in culture. And I added that myself. Or a distinct, interesting culture that attracts people to it. This kind of goes on to what Renato was talking about with the Krav Maga fighting Kajukenbo being different. We can't just be karate in a black gi or Kempo, but with judo. There's got to be something to the idea of Kajukenbo in terms of practice, appearance, or customs that make people say, that's cool. I want to be a part of that. B,
100%, yeah.
That's my closing thoughts on the matter. Or B, and then star, then that's it. I think that was B.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Or distinct interesting culture. That's his B. That was his B point.
Okay.
And then he said, thanks for inviting me on the show. So there. That is for the book of Rob, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen.
Very good.
and I think with that, let's take one more shot here.
Hang on 1 second.
Wait a second.
Well, while we're waiting for John.
Fill up the track
Yeah, thank you very much for coming out and being a part of the 100th episode.
And congrats again for the great work you're doing, man. Angelo,
Thanks, man. It's been fun. Cheers.
It has.
Cheers.
Anthony, you were about to say something?
No, I was just saying that Renato's been promoting the name of this drink that he's drinking.
Yeah, I'm a seller.
Cracking.
So by
I'm a
way of
seller.
example,
If you like rum, I do recommend it myself. Go for it.
Well, yeah, that's that. I think that wraps up the 100th episode pretty well. It was a lot about Kajukenbo. I just want to let my listeners know that I know I talk a lot about Kajukenbo. Originally, this podcast was supposed to be about psychology and martial arts. And the reason I moved, and I announced this before I started the Kajukenbo series, the reason it became a lot about Kajukenbo was because I just felt, going back to what I said earlier about the marketing, that we lacked this marketing element. And at one point, I didn't want to make a Kajukenbo podcast because I already had a certain amount of people following the show. And I figured, why start all over again and have to siphon people into something else when I could just keep doing my show and keep kind of doing bits on psychology, keep making YouTube videos about substance abuse, even though we're drinking, and other psychology issues, suicide and suicide awareness. I can still do this stuff, but I can still talk about Kajukenbo as well. And I think that was the whole point. That's the whole point.
See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Back to alcohol.
So again, thank you everybody for coming out for the 100th episode. It's much appreciated, and thanks for supporting the show. That's
Tell Mickey to watch his calendar better next time.
well, Mickey told me he may or may not make it. He told me that. Full disclosure. He said I probably will not make it because I think he has a boxing event tonight.
Okay.
He's
wow.
he's got some fight happening and he's coaching, and he wasn't going to be done till this podcast was finished recording. So
Okay, fair enough.
wow.
So it's got a late night. Well, with that being said,
Congratulations.
Mahalo nui.
thank you very much, and to my listeners, really appreciate it. If you got through this and this was your first episode, what a fucking episode to listen to for your first episode. That's all I got.
What is wrong with you?
All I gotta say is I can't believe you listened to the whole thing. You must have been very lost, and I do recommend you go back. If you want to start with the martial arts episodes, that was about 3 years ago. Just jump into the Kajukenbo series on YouTube, and it'll be focused in Kajukenbo. If you want it all, I've interviewed a prostitute. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, check it out. It's in the other Social Gelo.
What'd you say about me?
You didn't have to say that, John. Now you're covered. Your cover is over.
If we were being taped and I was drinking too, that could go down on the road.
And legally, I should say I did not interview a prostitute. I interviewed a quote unquote sex worker. But yeah, there's a lot of episodes out there that do go into psychology in the first. Like if you like what you've heard about the Kajukenbo series and you want to see this kind of stuff, I did make a lot of my podcast drastically changed 3 years back. But if you go into the Social Gelo part of the YouTube channel, or if you're just on listening to this on a podcast, if you go back to episode 1, you're gonna see a big difference between episode 1 and like episode 60 or 70, because that's when I started doing the Kajukenbo series. I still like that stuff, but I just found that this was I'm more passionate about this topic, which is why I decided to hone in on it a little more. And I had
and we can hear you play a song also, so that's good.
Oh yeah, there's music. There's music. There's music, there's dancings, there's sex workers. Check it out.
Calling me that.
Thanks again, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Anti-racist, fucking punk core.